And now a word from DC Comics. Hi there everyone, WoW Services, the new head of DC Mature Rated Titles, and I just wanted to come in here today and say I am aware that you are all very concerned with the news that this week DC decided to cancel the Vertigo line of books. But don't you worry, I'm here to put your fears to rest, because under the new Black Label line, you're going to find that same level of innovation and creativity that you always came to expect from Vertigo Comics, with our brand new hard-hitting series such as Batman Book, Other Batman Book, Superman Book with Batman Writer, Joker Book featuring Batman, and The Other History of the DC Universe, a series that is going to take social issues such as discrimination and frame them through the lens of the DC Universe. And whoa, hold on. Now that I say those words out of my mouth, that doesn't sound like anything I want to be a part of. Let's get that out here. Let's just never mention that again. And let's replace that with, I don't know, a Harley Quinn book featuring the Joker and Batman. That's the Black Label way right there. My point is, don't worry about the future of Vermilion Comics or whatever the hell it was called. It's going to be fine under the brand new Black Label line of series. Thank you, and enjoy buying Batman. This has been a word from DC Comics. You know, a couple weeks ago I found myself thinking, gee, there's nothing really interesting going on in the comic book industry. I don't really have anything to talk about on this week's episode of Comic Class. I really wish something big and important would happen in the comic book industry. Little did I know I was making that wish on a magic monkey's paw. Yes, as you saw in that intro, after almost 30 years, DC has announced that they're going to be putting an end to the Vertigo line of comics. Now, this was a rumor that was circulating around the internet a couple weeks ago, and I really wanted to talk about back then, but I decided, you know what, it could turn out to be completely untrue. Let's hold off on it. For the time being, this is just a rumor. Just like how a couple months ago, there was that rumor circulating around the internet that Tom King was going to be kicked off the Batman books. Which leads me to a very important question. DC, who is it behind the scenes that is leaking all your private information? Who the heck is it at DC who is looking at the stuff that should be kept really secret from the public and going, well, that clearly has to be known by everyone out there? I'm not even mad at them. I'm just curious how this keeps getting leaked out, because this is 2 for 2 within the span of like a month. So yeah, it really seems like someone should be asking questions about this. So, as you can probably tell from my tone, I'm not exactly pleased with any of this for multiple reasons. But I'm also not exactly surprised by any of this, also for multiple reasons. And I will get into that in just a second. But before we go any further, let me just let you know what today's video is going to be on, or more accurately, what it's not going to be on. This is not going to be a history lesson of Vertigo Comics. And this is not going to be an in memoriam of Vertigo Comics, where I come in here and say, yes, Vertigo Comics, they're gone now, but they provide us with so many good times. Let's think back fondly on some of our favorite titles from Vertigo. Yeah, we're not doing that. You know the stages of loss? I skipped right past denial because I had no doubts this was actually happening, firmly planted my flag in anger, and I have no plans to move on to bargaining anytime soon. And you guys know me. You know I don't like to get angry on this channel. I feel like being angry on YouTube attracts the wrong audience, and I feel that it's too easy to just become that mad guy on the internet, and I don't want to be that mad guy on the internet. And when it comes to comic books, there's so many amazing things out there to be talking about that I don't even think it's appropriate to mainly just focus on the stuff that makes you angry. I feel like that is not a healthy thing to do. However, yeah man, I'm kind of ticked off about this. And it leads me to a very important question. DC, what is happening with you? And it's kind of sad, I've had to ask that multiple times over the past couple months. Now, let's begin by talking about what exactly is going to happen to Vertigo Comics. As I said, that entire line is being canceled, but the books themselves are going to be picked up and moved over to Black Label. And I've seen many people out there saying, no, this is fine. Those books, they're going to continue under Black Label, which is probably a smart move because Vertigo, it hasn't really been what Vertigo's been for a long period of time. It's not the Vertigo that we remember from back in the day. That is true. Vertigo Comics today is not what it was back about 10, 20 years ago. You know why? Because comic books are not what they were. 10, 20 years ago. The thing that has always defined Vertigo Comics has been brand new voices telling really bold stories. Telling stories that were unlike anything else that you could find in the comic book industry. And you know something? Vertigo is still doing that today. It's just that the world that we live in and the creators that we see out there in the comic book industry are not exactly like the world and the creators that we saw 10, 20 years ago. And that's fine. That just means that time is moving on. For all the people out there who look at Vertigo today and they say, well, yeah, but it's not like it's Preacher or Why the Last Man or any of those titles that I grew up with over at Vertigo. Hi, I'm also in my 30s. We're old now, and that is okay. It's okay that things are different these days. And I've been looking at what Vertigo's been putting out ever since they did their big relaunch less than a year ago. Yeah, man, it's good stuff. DC is putting out good stuff. It just has a very different tone, but it still feels new. It still feels bold. It still feels like different stuff than what we're getting in the rest of the industry out there, and I love that. That is something that has always defined Vertigo, and that is the reason why I am not happy about this idea to pick them up and move them over to DC Black Label. Because, as we said in that opening skit, DC's Black Label might as well just be DC Bat Label. It is basically just, hey, it's Batman, but we're allowed to swear now, and we're allowed to show, like, butts. Isn't that great? It's Batman, but naked. That's everything that you want, right? Yeah, not exactly. And don't get me wrong, I'm not coming in here and saying, hey, if a creator wants to tell a story, and that is part of the story that they want to tell, go for it. They should be allowed to do that. But it feels more to me like now that everything is being moved over to the Black Label, we're going to slowly start seeing those new innovative stories that we were getting over at Vertigo, that had always defined Vertigo, slowly being tapped away because we can make more money off of Batman. And that is exactly what my problem is with this. Many years ago, many years ago, I was talking about something that I would love to see Marvel Comics do. And I said I want to see Marvel really embracing different imprints, different labels, like DC does. Because when you take books that are aimed at a specific audience with a specific voice and a specific tone, and you pick them up and you put them in their own little label, then those books are kind of safe and they have more freedom and they're allowed to do whatever they want to do over there, because when these books only have to compete with themselves, they have more freedom. They don't have to worry about bringing in the biggest audience, just about speaking to the audience that they're aimed at. If you take those books and move them into the main line of comics, now they don't have to compete with each other, they have to compete with Batman. That was my exact words when I was describing the entire reason why you need multiple labels. That's what I said years ago. Now they have to compete with Batman. Guess what is happening? Now the books at Vertigo are being picked up, moved over to Black Label. Now they have to compete with Batman. And I got news for you. You're not gonna outsell Batman because he's Batman. So yes, all the books over at Vertigo are going to get picked up and moved over to Black Label, and I'm sure they'll be fine for a little while. But it's only a matter of time. We all know that moment is going to come when the creators of those books are going to get called into the higher-ups' offices and they're told, yeah, your hip, trendy, indie style book, it's not exactly selling as well as the other DC Black Label books. Well, yeah, because it's a hip, trendy, indie style book, and the other DC Black Label books is a Scott Snyder Batman book. Of course it's not going to compete with that. Yeah, but here's the thing, we really need you to compete with that. Have you ever thought about, I don't know, adding Batman to your title? Or, okay, you know what, you're opposed to Batman? What if we just replace your book with, I don't know, a Red Hood book? I think that would reach the exact same target audience that you're going for. It will not reach the exact same target audience that they're going for. Yeah, and that's my fear with what we see happening right now. And it's not going to happen quite like I just explained. It's going to be a little bit more like, okay, this book is gone. Okay, well, what's the new Black Label book that's going to replace that old Vertigo book? Oh, another Joker book. Okay. Well, at least we still have these 3 other hip, trendy, indie style books over at Black Label. Oh, okay, now we're down to 2. And that book is being replaced with a Superman book. Or, oh, wow, Wonder Woman book. Okay, that's different. That's not like the other books that are out there. That's going to be a little bit different. And, oh, wait, the Wonder Woman book is gone, and now it's being replaced by another Batman book. Okay, well, we're now down to 2 hip, trendy, indie style books over at Black Label that are being aimed at a specific audience, and there goes the second one. And Here comes another Batman book. Okay. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit more of a gradual thing. It's not going to be so much they just flat out cancel all the books at once and then replace them with a bunch of Batman books. It's going to be, oh, hey, what happened to this book? Wasn't it here last week? I was really digging it. Oh, that's gone now. Well, what's replacing it? Another very mainstream adult style book. Yeah, we're going to start losing a lot of unique voices with what's happening to Vertigo. And I don't just mean with the style of books that we're going to see, I also mean with the talent that we're going to see in these books, because that was something else that really defined Vertigo. Yeah, there would be a lot of creators who had established histories, who had careers, and a lot of stuff that they had put out before, and a fan following, and they would go on to Vertigo to do stuff. But Vertigo was also not afraid to just let brand new names come in there. Vertigo was known for letting a lot of people break down the door and get into comics by just being allowed to tell whatever story they want to tell. For example, I just mentioned how Scott Snyder is doing one of the most popular Black Label books out there. And that is after he spent years doing the most popular Batman run of, I don't know, a couple decades now. Yeah, he is a huge star at DC Comics. Do you know what turned him into a huge star in the comic book world? American Vampire at Vertigo Comics. He did that before he got any of the Batman books. He did that early in his career. That was the thing that made people go, oh, this Scott Snyder guy is going to be big. We need to pay attention to this Scott Snyder guy. Yeah, he did a Vertigo book when he couldn't really get a whole lot of other work out there. That's what helped him break into the comic book industry in the way that he did. Same goes for a lot of other people out there. I mean, on the day that it was announced that Vertigo was being canceled, Jason Aaron, probably the biggest guy that Marvel has, came out and said, yeah, I would not be in this industry if it was not for Vertigo Comics. Vertigo Comics was the reason why so many people were able to get into the industry, and when you look at the stuff that Black Label is putting out, Scott Snyder. Not fresh-faced Scott Snyder, no, veteran Scott Snyder. Scott Snyder who has been around for a while with a huge following. It's Brian Azzarello, it's Frank Miller. It's people who don't really need help getting their voices heard in the comic book industry. But when I think about Vertigo Comics, that's everything that I thought of with Vertigo Comics. Vertigo Comics was that line of books that helped people who had messages and voices that you couldn't really hear in the comic book industry finally be allowed to tell those stories. And when I think about what I've seen from Black Label, yeah, they say that, oh, these are mature books. These are books aimed at older audiences, but it's still very much mainstream comics. It's still very much the kind of stuff that, yeah, I can find in other books. Just now people are allowed to curse. That's kind of it. Yeah, I have not been that impressed by what I've been seeing in there. It does not have that unique perspective that the books over at Vertigo had. There's really only been one book that has been announced from Black Label that really feels like something I would expect to find from Vertigo Comics. And that was the other history of the DC Universe, in which it was going to be stories about the major events that happened in the DC Universe, but framed through the perspective of, as they put, disenfranchised characters. It was going to be from characters who typically don't get to be in the spotlight. It was going to be people who do suffer from discrimination and live very different lives than, you know, say Batman or Superman or Wonder Woman. So yeah, this felt like a very important title. It felt like something that we needed out there, and it felt like it was going to have the voice that we got from books over at Vertigo. That book got canceled before it even came out. And even if it did come out, it was going to be written by an Academy Award-winning screenwriter. So it's still not like Black Label was going to go, hey, who's that unique new guy out there who has a voice and has a message that no one else is talking about? It was them going, hey, who's the big Hollywood guy that we can get in here? Yeah, that'll be good for some name brand recognition in here. Yeah, even then, still, with as bold as that series sounded, it still had problems compared to the stuff that I would expect from Vertigo, and it still isn't even coming out because it was too bold and too fresh and too new for Black Label. I'll tell you, what this really reminds me of, and what this makes me think of, with this move from Vertigo over to Black Label, it reminds me of something that I've seen happen a lot over the past couple of years in the video game industry, and I'm not just bringing this up to promote our video game channel. No, not doing that today. This is too important for that. But over the past couple of years in the video game industry, we've seen a lot of franchises that have a lot of love behind them just get dropped because the companies look at them and go, yes, they do make a profit, but they don't make us all the profit all the time forever. But that's insane to want all the money all the time forever. Yes, it is important to make a profit. You have to keep your business going, but I think a lot of people out there, they constantly think, okay, well, a profit means all the profits. It means that you have to constantly bring in the maximum amount of money at all times, and that's not really good. I mean, yes, for your shareholders, it's the right decision. For the people out there who only care about numbers, yes, the higher the numbers, the better it is. But you gotta remember, comic books are an art form. And it's important in an art form to have more voices out there, to have more tones out there, to have different styles of books out there. And as long as you can make a profit off of those different styles of books and off of those different tones, then it is kind of important to make sure that there is a space for those different voices. And again, as I said at the beginning of this video, now those different voices are gonna have to compete with Batman. And I don't really think it's healthy to basically just go, Batman makes us all the money, put as much Batman in there as you can. But as I said, it's not just Vertigo Comics. It's also DC Zoom and DC Inc. They're being canceled and merged into DC Kids, which honestly feels like what they should have done from the beginning. Because as I said, I love that DC has so many different imprints. They have so many different labels. But less than a year ago, they kind of went nuts and just started announcing so many different imprints out there. And it became kind of confusing. It felt like too much all at once. And they announced 2 different lines that were both aimed at young readers at the exact same time. Why would you announce both of them at once? Yes, I know that there's a difference between DC Zoom and DC Inc., but if you announce 2 young reader lines at the exact same time, we're just gonna look at that and go, yeah, they're like the exact same thing, right? Well, now they're going to merge together and they're going to be the exact same thing. So, yeah, it feels like they should have done that from the beginning, but them doing that now, when neither of these lines are a year old, when neither of them have even had time to really develop their own identity and make it clear to us what exactly was going to be unique about them, yeah, man, it's way too soon to do something like that. But that's kind of going to lead me into another problem I have with what DC has been doing recently. Heck, not even recently, like over the past 5, 6, 7 years now. DC seems really reactive. It feels like whenever there is a problem, DC just looks at it and goes, let's just immediately do this thing! And don't get me wrong, I can point over at Marvel and say Marvel's been doing that too, but oh my gosh, DC has gone into overdrive recently. Yeah, you look at this and, okay, our imprints, they aren't really selling all that well. Okay, merge them together into one thing. Well, they haven't even been around long enough to really establish themselves as being anything. Merge them together! But then you go back less than a year ago, and it was, yes, imprints are the big thing. Let's launch all these imprints! You have 2 here that are both aimed at young readers. Doesn't that feel like nuts? No, the more imprints, the better! Same thing goes for what's going on with Vertigo right now. It's not bringing in all the money right now. Let's cancel it and bring it over to the Black Label. But you just did the relaunch of this line less than a year ago. Like, you haven't even really had time to establish the new relaunch of Vertigo. And why are you even doing Black Label? It's more mature books about these characters, but you already have Young Animals. Wait, what happened to Young Animals? Where are all those books? Where'd they go? Oh, don't worry about all that. Doom Patrol will be back anytime now. Let's get Black Label out there, and let's cancel Vertigo. Let's bring it over here. It just seems so random. But not really random, impulsive. That's the better word for it. It feels more like, there's a problem. Let's not work on this. Let's just immediately do what comes to our head. And this is something that we have seen going on with DC for a long time now. I like to remind people about this, but the New 52, that massive relaunch, that massive just hitting the restart button on their continuity, changing everything around, that book that spun out of Flashpoint, the big storyline that involved the Flash resetting the entire DC universe, yeah, that giant massive thing that you should really sit down and think about before you decide to do it, that was not planned out when they started Flashpoint, the event that was going to lead into it. And I don't mean they just had some sticky notes on the board and they were going to go from there. No. When I say it wasn't planned out, I mean they weren't going to do it. It was not going to be a thing when the event that led into it started. Because if you go back and you look at when that event started, you had a Justice League International lead-up book that ended with them going, to be continued in a few months in Justice League International. Nope, because that entire reality was just erased. That didn't happen anymore. There were articles coming out at the beginning of Flashpoint saying when this event is over with, we are going to lead into a Speed Force book that will focus on Wally West and focus on Bart Allen. It's going to be like the Green Lantern Corps book for all the Green Lanterns that aren't Hal Jordan, focusing on all the other speedsters out there. Yeah, that was planned before they erased all the other speedsters out there. They were not going to relaunch their entire universe when they started the storyline that relaunched their entire universe, but their sales were getting pretty low, so they just decided, screw it, big massive relaunch. It really feels like the people over at DC are just doing whatever thought comes into their head. Jeff Johns had a storyline in which he was going to explain how the New 52 was created and how it all ties back into Wally West, and that was going to lead to the mystery of the Legion of Superheroes and the mystery of the JSA and the mystery of how the Watchmen were involved in all this. It was going to be this big, massive, huge, epic storyline. But those books got delayed. Jeff Johns ended up leaving his position at DC so he could just become a regular writer over at DC. And now the guy who didn't like Wally West was back in charge. So yeah, it doesn't matter if he is a vital, intricate part of the storyline. He's gone. Get him out of here. Yeah, it really feels like they are just making decisions on the fly over there. It does not really give me a lot of faith in the future of DC Comics. Don't get me wrong, that's not me coming in here and saying all the books at DC are bad. No. I'm just saying it doesn't feel like there's really a direction over at DC right now. It doesn't really feel like there's any plan, and it feels like everything can change on the fly. Another example of what I'm talking about, Tom King on Batman. Tom King, at issue number 50 of his Batman run, was going to have the marriage of Batman and Catwoman. But then it didn't happen. And he came out and said, I know you're all upset about this, but trust me, I have a long game plan. There is such a long story ahead of us, and this was just part one. But every single thing is leading up to issue number 100. He said that at issue 50, that all this was going to pay off at issue number 100. Everything you're mad at with the weight of Batman and Catwoman, all going to pay off at issue number 100. Everything that you're confused about, you might have questions about, you might have concerns about, all going to pay off at issue number 100. Everything weighs on issue 100. Everything comes down to that issue right there, the big finale to my storyline. But then Batman got outsold by the Immortal Hulk. Batman, the undisputed champ of solo books, being at the very top of the sales, got outsold by another solo title out there. One over at Marvel. Does that mean that Batman wasn't making money anymore? No, Batman was still making a ton of money. But another title out there was now making even more money than he was. And we can't have that. So he is now being kicked off that book at issue 85. He was in the end zone. He could see the end right there. He just needed to get a little bit further. No, screw it. You gotta get out of here. But wait, you still have more Batman stories to tell. What if we launch another Batman book and we put you on that one? So now we have not just this new Batman book that will have even higher sales than Immortal Hulk and will be back at the top of the charts. We'll now also have your other Batman book that will also be at the top of the charts. We'll have two top of the charts books. I can't even say that so many times. Sorry, I've tried saying that so many times, it's lost on me. We're not ending this take on that. Yeah, it is kind of madness to me. And it, again, is just another sign of DC kind of just going, yeah, screw whatever we had planned. Screw the importance of this thing. Let's just immediately do this. Let's just change everything on a dime. Let's just immediately respond to whatever we're doing on this day. It really does not feel like anyone has a plan over there anymore. Actually, that's unfair to say. It feels like people have plans. It feels like the people who decide whether or not those plans get implemented, they don't have plans. It feels like everything is now changing on a dime. And I'm sure that there's someone who works at DC who goes, no, you don't see what I see. Everything is working out fine here. Everything is going to be just fine. That's great that you see that. The people out here, we're not seeing that. That's not being conveyed to us, and it is a bit concerning. And just to add that little cherry on top of the I don't think they know what they're doing Sunday, just today, they announced that Joe Hill, the writer of my favorite book of all time, Lock and Key, go check out Lock and Key, it's amazing if you've never read. Joe Hill was now going to be leading his new imprint over at DC, Hill House, which was going to focus on horror stories. I love Joe Hill. I love horror stories in comics. This is perfect for me. I am very excited about this. But man, are you kidding me with this? You just a week ago came in here and canceled your line of mature, adult-themed books, many of which were iconic horror series, so that you could then move all that over to the Batman line of books, just so that now you could announce a brand new line of adult-themed horror books. What? That seems like madness to me. That is, you just canceled 2 other imprints because you had too many imprints. And now, a week later, brand new imprint. This is insanity to me. It really does feel like even news that I should be excited about, I just look at it and go, oh my god, it really feels like just watching that ending of Blues Brothers where all the cars are just piling up. It feels like there's just so many ideas just being flung around at DC right now that it really feels like they're just mashing into each other with no real strategy. That's what this feels like to me. Yes, I am excited for Hill House. That sounds amazing. I can't wait to read these books. But dude, I would trade all that in a second just to know what the plan is. Just to know that there's some kind of a strategy here. But Sally, I don't think that there is. That is it for today's episode of Comic Class. I want to thank you guys for tuning in today. I'd also like to say, yes, I am aware of the irony then this video talking about how it feels like DC doesn't really have a plan. They're jumping all over the place. I myself felt like I didn't really have a plan and I was jumping all over the place. So, you know, how you guys felt watching me in today's video, that's how I've felt watching DC over the past couple months. So it was entirely on purpose, me being this random and all over the place. And it was not because these lights are insanely hot and they've been on me for a couple of hours now. No, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up before I die of dehydration and just say thank you guys for tuning in. You can follow me around the web on Twitter and Twitch at Professor Thorgy. And we do Comic Class every single week on this channel. If you want to see the next episode, make sure that you click that subscribe button. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Come back next time. Bye.